There's a story that Swami used to enjoy telling. It's about a group of ladies who were sitting around talking about their sons and how important they were. And one said, well, my son is a priest. And when people talk to him, they say, Father. And another lady said, well, my son is a bishop. And when people talk to him, they say, Your Eminence. And another lady said, well, that's nothing. My son is the Pope. And when they talk to him, they refer to him as His Holiness. And another lady, her son wasn't in the religious orders at all, so she was thinking, well, what can I say? And then she said, he's really big and tall, and so she said, well, when people see my son, they say, oh my God. So there are many ways to pray to the Lord, and we don't have to think of him. Master used to say, don't pray to God as though he were a pampered lady. Pray to God with the language of your own heart. Think of God as the nearest of the near. You know, we think of this body as sort of separate from everyone else, everything else. Certainly God is out there. He's not right here. Well, why didn't I notice him if he's inside? Where is he? But the truth of it is that our bodies too, just like the chair and the floor and the altar, it's all made of God. There isn't anything made that isn't God. He didn't have anything else to work with in this creation except himself, his own consciousness. That's why it's so thrilling to see yoga and science coming together, because science is starting to say, well, matter is just energy. And the yogis are going, yeah, we've known that for a few thousand years. And moreover, science is saying, and energy seems to be just a manifestation of thought. And the yogi is going, well, yes, we knew that too. It's matter, energy, thought, or consciousness. Everything is consciousness. And so that means that every cell in your body has that, as Master used to call them, lifetrons, that little spark that is the life within every atom of creation. And so we are not separate. We are part, as the Festival of Light says, you are a part of all that is. We just have this illusion of separateness, this maya, this delusion that has created a sense of separateness, a sense of individuality. But the realization that we have to come to finally through all of our lives, all of our struggles, all of our disappointments and triumphs, the end result is that we realize God is within us. Self-realization. So when trials come and pain happens and disappointment and struggle, all of that, rejoice in it, because that is what gets you to God. That is what finally forces us to turn within and say, you know, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe there's, one or two things that I could use some help with, and maybe, God, you could help me. That's when prayer comes in. That's when we finally think, I'm at the end of my tether. I have no more options. I have no more ideas of what's going to make me happy or how to resolve this situation. I surrender. There was a beautiful song in the 40s that Swami loved, and it was called I Surrender, Dear. And he would turn the lyrics to mean not just an earthly love, but a divine love. And he used to love to sing that song, thinking of, okay, I surrender. I give up on trying to find my fulfillment and my happiness in this world. I understand that I can only find the peace and the joy and the love and the bliss that my soul longs for by surrendering. I had a beautiful experience the other day. I was just thinking, I am nothing. And there's a great joke I've got to tell you about. Swami loved this joke too. So there were, I think it was 2 Jewish rabbis. It could be 2 priests, okay? I'm not trying to be a sectarian here. It could be any religious figures, let's just say. And so they were sort of vying for the prize in humility. And one of them came to the altar and prostrated himself and said, I am nothing. And the other one saw this one doing it, and he thought, well, I guess I should do that too. So he came up to the altar and he prostrated himself and he said, I am nothing. And meanwhile, the janitor was in the back. And he thought, oh, this is wonderful. So he came up to the altar and he said, I am nothing. And these 2 other men said, look who thinks he's nothing. But the other day, without that sort of other twist to it, I was thinking, I'm just really nothing. And I felt this wonderful joy rising in my spine, and it was as though God said, finally, now I can come in. And that feeling of surrender, of I don't have any ideas, I don't have any plans, I don't have any desires or anything. I just offer myself to you. And that's when God can come in. That's when he said, oh, good, at last, I can set everything right. I can give you everything you want. Offer yourself to him. Don't hold anything back. He knows everything anyway. It's not as though you can keep that guilty secret from him. He knows it already. He knows what you need before you even can verbalize what you need. He is you. That's why it's called self-realization. But as this reading so beautifully points out, we have to think of God as thou and I. Then the relationship becomes sweet. Ask him anything. Give him your heart. In all the 3 worlds, the causal, astral, and physical, the only thing that God does not have is our love. And that's what he wants. That's what he's after. So think of your life as just a growth process. You're growing in understanding, your heart is opening, your mind is becoming more desirous of God. And see everything that happens as just a natural part of that growth process, a natural part of growing in the light and the joy and the beauty and the bliss of God. So be positive in everything. When something happens and you go, oh no, not this again. Don't have that attitude. Let that attitude go. Think, okay, another opportunity to grow, to change. We hate change. Isn't change terrible? But we have to embrace it. We have to go, no, change is good. It's part of life. And life is good. As long as we have a breath in our bodies, let us give thanks to God. Everything that happens, accept with joyful, loving gratitude. We are about to go on our Hawaii adventure retreat. I'm completely even-minded about this. No expectations or anything. But part of the programs that we're doing there is an all-day, All Saints retreat day. So I have been pulling out all the stories about St. Anthony and Gyanamata and all these wonderful saints so that we can share stories about them during this retreat day. And I found this beautiful quotation from St. Elizabeth Seton, who lived in the 18th century, early 19th century. And this is how to pray. We must pray without ceasing in every occurrence and employment of our lives. That prayer which is rather a habit of lifting up the heart to God, as in a constant communication with Him. So I will just close now by saying that this is the true way to pray. We don't have to repeat formal prayers. We don't have to say a litany of all that we believe in or like a credo. We don't have to repeat memorized prayers. As Swami said, someone asked him towards the end of his life, I think it was Jyotish, saying, Swami, should we have a actual written prayer for something? Maybe it was the Sevaka order or something like that. Can you write a prayer that we would all repeat? It was a nice idea. But Swami said, it's been so long since I've prayed with words. And that's what this quotation is saying too. It's not about the words. It's not about forming just the right petition so God won't misunderstand and give us something else that we don't want. It's a continual lifting up the heart, just bringing your consciousness up. It's a self-offering. It's a loving remembrance in every employment and occurrence of life, as she says here, just lifting the heart up to God, remembering Him. And truly, as we have been talking about free will versus predestination, we have only that conscious choice in the moment to lift ourselves up towards God or into outwardness and materialism. That's the choice that in that second to second, moment to moment consciousness, that's what shapes our destiny. That's what shapes our karma, creating it for good or ill. So if we can just live in that uplifted state of remembrance, we will be free. God bless you.
I'm glad that Nirmala suggested that we embrace change, because I would like to embrace change right this moment by suggesting that we sing our song, our offertory song now, so that I can talk about it afterwards. Otherwise, there will be extra pressure on the song, and I would rather not have that be the case. This is the song that Swamiji wrote called Why. And if I'm not mistaken, this song has never been sung here in Sacramento, at least not in this form. I sang it once myself as a solo a while ago, but we're going to sing it for you as a group today.
There lived a tender maid in a far-off country. The strangeness of this world made her sigh. Her friends asked their fathers for money and clothes, but all she could ask was, why? She saw the solemn clouds gathered watching a rainbow, the bright rays of their joy filled the sky. Her teachers explained it all wisely away, but still her heart wondered, why? She saw the silent stars thrill the night with their gladness. They seem some wondrous truth to imply. Her elders all slept, but the magic of light awoke her to ponder, why? She saw a mother smile as she tended her baby, a widow weep that love had to die. The joy of new friends and the sadness of parting, all these made her ask God, why? One night into her heart stole the secret of oneness, the bond not even time can untie. For love then possessed her and made her his own. In love she at last learned, why?
this song captures in a certain way the essence of Swamiji's life, because he, from birth essentially, was always in one way or another, for one reason or another, always asking that question, why? Why am I here? Why is life like this? Why do I not understand? And that, in a sense, is the essence of prayer. Prayer is a calling. And as Nirmala said, we want to pray in the language of our own hearts. We can start with a structured prayer. There's nothing terribly wrong with that. And Christ gives us the Lord's Prayer in the Bible. And it's a very, as Swamiji mentions in the reading, it's a very human prayer, speaking of, give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins as we forgive those who have sinned against us, and so forth. But ultimately, it's saying, I want to know you. Thine is the kingdom, the power, the glory. All of that language has at least in this modern context, has a tendency for us to push God off into the heavens somewhere, far, far away. I'm remembering when we lived in Italy and when we traveled in Italy, being in the Sistine Chapel and looking up and seeing the image of God reaching down and Adam reaching up, and their fingers are about to touch, and the spark of life is about to be given, and Adam is about to be filled with that life. And that's, in a sense, that's what prayer is that point of encounter, that point of meeting. And in the Bhagavad Gita part of the reading, Swamiji is addressing that question, and Arjuna is asking on behalf of all devotees, so is it better to worship God as infinity, or is it better to do this I-thou relationship? And Krishna says it's easier to do I and thou, because if we think of God as infinite and only infinite, and there is nothing else beyond that infinity, and our own egos, our own separate reality has no truth to it, no ultimate reality, it's really hard to know where to stand in that equation. We have a body, we have an ego, we have an awareness of that separation. What do we do with that? That's where the I-thou relationship comes in, and we can perceive God more easily. And that sense of, I don't know if this is the case for everyone. I know it was the case for me. The first time I encountered infinity as a concept as a child, it just freaked me out. It just blew my mind. The concept that heaven is eternity, and of course hell is eternity too, sort of by extension, but that concept that Swami used to tell the joke or the story, this kind of colorful story, if indeed hell is eternal and it lasts forever, some guy goofs up in this lifetime and ends up on the wrong side of the tracks, ends up in the wrong place down there, and so he's down there, and 100 years go by, and 1,000 years go by, and 10,000 years, a billion years goes by, and he's still stuck there. Somebody asks him, hey, what are you in here for anyway? And the guy kind of scratches his head. Well, I just don't exactly remember anymore. It's been a long time. It has to, there's a sense that we have to, we're still bound by that sense of time. Eternity is now. Eternity is the awareness that we have in the moment. This is described alternatively and also somewhat colorfully as the razor's edge, which doesn't sound like a nice place to walk, frankly. You don't want to cut your feet on that razor's edge. But if you think, there's past on one side and there's future on the other, and where we walk is a line that has no dimension to it. That's now, and that's eternity. And The prayer that we offer when it comes from our heart is perfect. That's all we need to know. That question that Swamiji asked, why? That's a prayer. That's the prayer of his life. And I am convinced for my part that that prayer was answered when he wrote the song Love is a Magician. Because it's like he finally understood that his own love was the part that was missing. And by offering that love unhesitatingly, unrestrained to God, he could finally receive God's love completely. And then love, in fact, was a magician, and it completely changed his life. And it will completely change our lives, every one of us, in whatever position we find ourselves in life. Because it's so easy to say, oh, well, but I'm this. And therefore, by implication, by extension, I can't know God for this reason or that reason or the other reason. And we can add those up and multiply those out and live our life on that basis. And the Bible never gives us that, and the Bhagavad Gita never gives us that. We do that math ourselves. So we have to, at some point, just move all that aside. And, like the two priests in Nirmala's little joke, we have to throw ourselves in front of the altar and say, I'm nothing. Or like the chant, I am but an empty vessel, but not empty for the purpose of being empty for the purpose of receiving. I am love, I am joy, I am peace. That's the true reality. I am those things. We realize that in deep meditation, and we express that in daily life. And we may say, well, I've never experienced that in deep meditation. I've never had a deep meditation. We may say, okay, fine. But that potential is there because people have done it. Saints, one of the things that they will often do, in fact, St. Francis had this question asked of him. It's not a very polite question, but somebody asked, why you? Why did you get all this? Why did God come to you? St. Francis's answer was just spectacular. He said, so that no one could doubt that it was the grace of God. In other words, he had nothing of himself. There was nothing of his personal self that justified God coming to him. It was God's grace and God's grace alone. In other words, what he was saying is, look, I really am nothing. I am less than nothing. I am zilch. I have nothing to give that could merit such a response from God. Therefore, know that it's God's grace. But for all of us, think, whatever we may be, whatever we may think we may be, it still comes down to, in the silence of our hearts, offer ourselves, and then we can receive. This song that we were singing was running through my mind this entire week, partly because I needed to learn the bass part for the first time ever, and partly because we just haven't sung it, and it just, I wanted to go into. And what I realized was that there comes a point where you see the reality of this little tender maid, this little girl. You see through her eyes life and why. She's asking why. She's experiencing all these different situations in life. And she's saying, I don't understand why. Why is life like this? She sees the stars. She sees the rainbow in the clouds. She sees the mother with the baby and the wife who loses her husband and wonders where love went. And all of these things she's asking why. And then comes love and she understands why. And there comes a point where in our lives, we are going to become that song. Or another way to say it would be that song is going to become us. There will be a song that is going to move through your heart into this world. That song will never define you, but it will guide you. It will be the ray on which you move into infinity and move beyond the sense of limitation. whatever that song is, no one can tell you what that song is supposed to be. It's already written, in a sense, from the beginning of your existence, eons and eons ago. That melody is your very own. We have to learn to become good musicians of that melody, whatever it is, and sing from that point. That's the real prayer. The prayer is the song of our hearts. Gita, Bhagavad Gita, the song of the Lord. Sing that song in your heart and in your life, and you will know God's response instantly and forever. So we'll take an offering now.